In this video, we will look at the basics of hypothesis testing. We will look at examples involving one sample that's used to test a claim about a single population mean or a single population proportion. There are other types of tests where you could compare two population means or two population proportions, or even look at the difference between matched pairs. What is hypothesis testing? It's a facet of inferential statistics. So what is inferential statistics? Well, we know about descriptive statistics, where we describe what we found in our sample by taking statistics like the sample mean, the sample standard deviation, or the sample proportion. But inferential statistics is where we move it a step further and we take those descriptive statistics and try to infer something about the population. So, hypothesis testing is one area of inferential statistics in which we use sample data to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to reject an otherwise expected assumption in support of a claim about the population. I've chosen this image of the jury duty here because with hypothesis testing, we always have this thing called the null hypothesis, which we're trying to reject. We're either going to reject it or we're going to fail to reject it. And so why is it so important? Well, it could be thought of as the innocent until proven guilty assumption that a juror would have. I hope you know that when you're a juror on a jury duty, you are supposed to be able to assume and believe that the defendant is innocent until the prosecution can bring forth enough evidence to convince you otherwise. And that's pretty much what the null hypothesis is. It's assuming something until you have enough evidence to think anything different or to reject it. So we have two hypotheses here, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. Both are always stated about the population and never stated about the sample. We used sample results to test these claims, but the claims themselves are about the population. The null hypothesis is denoted with H sub 0, while the alternative hypothesis is H sub A or H sub 1. The null hypothesis, we will always state it symbolically using the equal sign. So if there's any kind of statement in your claim that has equality, you're going to put it into the null hypothesis using an equal sign. Now, the authors of our textbook, there's two of them, and one believed that you should only use the equal sign with the null hypothesis, and one believed that you can use less than or equal or greater than or equal as well. And we're choosing in this course to use the equal sign only because it is more proper. You can try to understand this by thinking about how we're trying to find evidence to reject this null hypothesis. And if we have just one statement that there is an equivalence, an equal sign, we only have one case to find evidence against. Whereas if you are trying to prove it for less than or equal, for instance, then you have infinite possibilities that you're supposedly finding evidence against. So it's really truly proper to say just use the equal sign when stating the null hypothesis. And that will be the way that I accept correct answers. So just make sure that you're always using the equal sign for your null hypothesis. Your alternative hypothesis, on the other hand, never has equality. It'll only have one of three relation symbols. It'll be the less than symbol, or the strictly greater than symbol, or the not equal symbol. And these symbol of the alternative hypothesis will determine the tails of the test. So if it's a left-tailed test, it'll have a less than symbol. If it's a right-tailed test, it'll have a greater than symbol. And if it's a two-tailed test, you'll see no direction in the symbol. The null hypothesis can only be rejected. The alternative hypothesis can only be supported. The default assumption of the null hypothesis can be thought of like innocent until proven guilty, or you could say something like nothing happened versus the alternative something happened, or no effect versus there is an effect, or no difference versus there is a difference. So these are all different ways that you could see the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis have meaning. So choosing the sampling distribution is the next step in our hypothesis testing lessons. I'll see you in the next video.